It is, and here we are. Welcome to the Health Evolution Collective. I'm here with my very dear friend, Helen Marshall from Primal Alternative, and I'm very grateful for you for coming to chat with me again on the podcast, Helen.
So good to be here again. We're just before we started recording, I was like, we're not just here for a chat, are we? Because we're here to do some serious messaging and sharing messages with the people, but we're just like, la, 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 la.
I know.
It's too easy.
It is too easy when you love it and you love your guests. So of course I love you, and I'm going to share why I love you even more very soon. But I just wanted to tell you before we started recording, literally 5 minutes before, a tree lopper turned up in the street and started chainsawing the limbs of the neighbour's tree and putting it and I'm sitting, because I normally work out of my bedroom in my little corner, couldn't hear a thing. I'm like, no good for a podcast. So I'm in my 17-year-old daughter's room now. So I had to move really quickly. But, I just think, that's life, right? With everything we do in life and business, we have to move with the punches, be flexible, and the better we are at that adapting and just going with the flow, the easier it all is. Is that, what do you think about all of that?
Well, first of all, I think it's really handy that you've got this portable backdrop, that signature to a Tracy McBee episode, right? So that's
Should
really
I change it?
Move that anywhere you want. No, it's like it's your brand now. Like we know the shutters. We know what that is. So that's really cool.
Because you just don't know what's behind them, which is always a good thing.
Multitudinous, a bit like what's behind me. Well, you just make sure, just the plant. Yeah, the plant's good, but you don't want to see the printer and all of the other paraphernalia there. So yes, adapting to your environment is very important. And yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that, now in this strange times that we're in, it's just a series of adaptations and tweaking to live the life we want, but that's still the life that is in alignment with our values, not giving up on or letting go of what's important to us. I think that's the key at the moment.
Yeah, and that's probably going to take a little bit of time because it has. I mean, the world has changed. There's no doubt that the world hasn't changed, and there's certainly being here in Melbourne, with any moment we could be thrown into it. I mean, you've had the lockdown, that 4-day or 5-day lockdown as well. And, it's just like there seems like there's an element of life that's kind of out of our control. But I suppose really it's always been like that. It just hasn't felt that way.
No, absolutely. And, we're lucky where I am in Western Australia. We haven't had we had a little lockdown at the beginning about a year ago in 2020. But since then, we've been free to roam the streets. And the lockdown in Western Australia was just to the Perth metro area, and we're like 6 hours south of Perth. So I feel like we're kind of like tucked away in the corner. Nobody really cares what we're doing down here, which is wonderful because you see everything that's happening, online, but that's not actually what's happening in this reality here. So it's a very I can't even comprehend how. Like my folks in the UK, they've been in lockdown for pretty much a year. I don't know how people are getting through this, to be honest. It's the weirdest of times that we've ever lived through, I reckon.
Yeah, it is. And I guess it's trying to just keep the focus, I suppose, on just one day. And, I certainly know can't complain at all, about what we've gone through really compared to, as you say, the UK and the US. And it's just tragic. And so many places we wouldn't even hear about, crazy. But anyway, I wanted to chat to you again because everyone listening knows, because I'm shouting it from the rooftop. So my husband joined Primal Alternative it was probably October last year, but really got going January this year in terms of starting to bake. And I was saying to you before we started, and I want to share with everyone just the perspective I've gained in watching him take all this on board and, learn he's gone from a black belt in martial arts to, yes, absolutely a white belt in baking and this type of business. But just, looking and learning and seeing what you have done to create this amazing business. I just, every day, I'm just in awe of the work you must have done and the obstacles you've probably gone around and had to overcome. I think I would love you to share in the last, because this is the 5th year that you've been doing it.
Sure is, yeah.
Yeah. So how's it changed, and how's it changed you over this time?
Whew, where shall I start? That's huge. But it's funny, because when you were saying that, I was thinking, I haven't done it all. I feel like when I first started with the license, I just spent a day putting everything that was inside of my head. So, the recipes, the pricing, the branding, all of that, how to approach a stockist, how to make a sale, what to do if somebody gets moldy bread, how do you deal with that? All of those sorts of things that are involved with the business, right through to the legalities. How do you get a food business registration? What sort of insurance do you need? All of that kind of thing. So I just kind of put it all on, and it was literally 2 bits of paper that initially 5 years ago used to just get emailed across to new Primalistas when they joined. And then it's just been a process really of, I would call it a co-creation. So Primalistas would say to me things like, I'm getting a lot of negative feedback on the plastic bags that we use. Is there a better, more environmentally friendly choice? So, we go off on a campaign to improve the packaging, and now we've got compostable, biodegradable, amazing bags, which we know we have to package things. We can't just, when we do get, can I just have mine in a tea towel or a waxy wrap? Yes, but our environmental health officers don't like that. They know everything needs to be sealed properly, obviously, for food safety reasons. But I guess that the way that it all started was, I was felt the benefits of a low carb primal way of life, and started health coaching to help people transition, because it's not easy to make big dietary changes in your life and to get your family on board as well, and to change the way you move your body and put the priority on sleep and connection, community, nature, all of those sorts of things. But the kickback I got from my clients was that they might do it for a little while and they definitely feel the benefits, but then they'd be like, but I just wanted pizza on Friday night. So we went and we got a Domino's, and then I felt bad. So I finished that bottle of wine, and then we got some ice cream and cookies and just finished them as well. And now I'm feeling guilty and bloated and crappy. And I just thought that, for me, food has always been a joy, a pleasure. I look forward to what I'm going to eat. I love planning what I'm going to have. And every day it's full of amazing, nutritious and delicious. I'm not going to just sit down and eat a bowl of, raw kale because it's good for me, but put some oil on it and some salt and turn it into a kale chip and I'll eat a whole tray. Do you know what I mean? It's got to taste good, right? So I was like, surely we can recreate, because fixing problems, that's my zone of genius. I love where's the solution? How can we fix this? And so I was like, surely we can come up with a paleo version of everything we like. So that's what we did. And I just found it was so much easier to say to people, all right, so you got to go gluten-free and dairy-free. So just have this instead of that. And they were like, okay, so I can still have pizza on a Friday, but I'm not going to end up in a food coma with bloating and gas and feeling sick on Saturday morning. I'm going to still feel amazing because this pizza is made from, almond meal and seeds and free-range eggs. And it's not really a pizza at all. It's just healthy food pretending to be junk food, So I think it's the biggest swizz of the century. And I think it makes people feel like they can have their cake and eat it too. Which is why it's just I've made this offering and everyone's like, oh my God, give it to me. And, I know that these recipes are, not everybody loves them, but they've been tested on thousands of people now. And the feedback that we get is that they're life changing, which is huge. And that's why the people like Amazing Jim, who want to make a difference in the world, they want to be there for their community and also be at home, having their own business, being there for their family. That's why they enjoy it so much, because the recipes are easy, they can help people. And it's just such a beautiful win-win-win for everybody that's involved in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So how, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had, and how have you overcome it? Because as the lady, so as I said, my perspective now is through my husband, and even seeing the challenges that he's had just as a primalista. And it's not anything to do with you at all. It's more about he's had to learn how to cook, and he's had to learn how to follow a recipe and doing things like, get the tins ready and, turn the oven on. And, because if you're not used to doing that, you all these little things that you got to think about. And they're little but big to us, to someone that's learning it. But I'd love to know, from your perspective, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've overcome in getting this going?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing for me has been like, who am I to do this? Who am I to have my own business? So before I created this and turned it into a license and started growing the brand through more producers, and that meant, the products could get to more people, because as one person, you can only bake so much, and you can only deliver that into your local area because it's real food without any preservatives or anything like that. So you can't ship it to, I couldn't ship it to the other side of the country because you'd just open up a box of mold, right? That's you're going to be out of business pretty soon if you do that. And I just really loved the local producer, low food miles aspect of it as well, which was really phenomenal. But I guess going back to the sorts of things that I've had to deal with, look, oh my goodness, it's everything from, feeling like, who am I to, I've got no qualifications in nutrition. I don't have a catering background. I'm just a mum that loves tinkering around, doing some baking I love, like, if there's any spare time, I'm in the kitchen. I love, making amazing food from scratch. I'm like a feeder. If you come to my house, like, I'll just be mapping out all the food I can feed you while you're at my house. It just revolves around what we're going to have. What should we have next? And then you're going to stay for lunch. Come on, stay for lunch. I'll make you another coffee. Let's have a cookie. It's like I'm a feeder. And then, like, even when my teenage son's mates come over, like, I just think, how much good food can I squeeze into these kids before they leave? Like, it's just the thing that I love to do. So, but that, that didn't qualify me, that passion, that your burning value and desire, that didn't qualify me to sell food to the public, So, I hid behind Facebook initially. When I started my business, I didn't feel brave enough to walk into a stockist's or get a market stall. What if somebody tapped me on the shoulder, Tracy, and said, you can't do this. Who do you think you are? And that was actually one of my biggest fears. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to get into some kind of trouble, and then they're going to send me back to England. I know, like, we laugh about it now, but like, it was such a fear that I was going to do something wrong and get into trouble, that I applied for citizenship in Australia. So I thought, well, even if I do something wrong, they can't kick me out. It was the funniest thing. Like, the silly things that we think about, at 3 a.m., like, oh, what if something bad goes wrong, So that was a big one. And, everybody that I meet on a call, if they're thinking about becoming a producer, they say to me, oh, I'm not salesy, and I feel really weird about going into shops and putting myself out there. And I'm like, hey, I know how that feels, But I think that the only way to get through any of this crap and nonsense, like, you're laughing at what I'm saying, and people who are watching this thinking, really? She used to think that's so stupid, I really think the only way to get over it is to get over it, to push through it, to put yourself out there and do it. And I think that for me, having my own business has been the biggest personal growth journey. Like, whatever shiz you have got, whether it's like, oh, I don't look the part, oh, I'll start my own health food business when I've lost those 5 kilos that I've been trying to lose for the last 25 years, like I don't look the part, I don't sound the part, I'm got this weird accent, no one's going to understand what I'm saying, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not all the stupid things, that we say. So I think that there's the biggest, and I think this is a great takeaway for anyone listening, is the biggest thing you can do is work on yourself. And it's a constant, as the business grows and kind of gets to the next level. Like over the summer, it's typically a quiet time, right? Because it's Christmas and everyone's on holiday, and then the kids are going back to school, and then everyone's getting their head back together in February after the kids have gone back to school. So it's a very quiet time for me, and that's a really good time to kind of like take everything apart and look at it. And so that's what I tend to do every year, just to kind of reassess it. And things are just going like to the next level this year. And it's so scary. It's like standing in the street with all your clothes off, just like, I feel so vulnerable. And it's like kind of really scary, but that's what you've got to do, because, this is what I feel like, this is my life's work. This is what I'm here for. And it's what I think about all the time. I don't need to motivate myself to do it. So therefore, I've got to get through all of this limiting stuff. And that could be in any shape or form, from some authority telling you can't do it. Usually with a lot of my potential primalistas, their fear of the authority is their council. Like, oh, well, all these 185 people have got their council approval, but my council won't let me do it. Like that's a very common one as well. Or there's a fear that another producer nearby might say they can't do it. And everyone says to me, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. So we've always got this fear of being told off, and then that comes down to just the most primal responses we've got, because if we piss somebody off, then we're going to be rejected from the community or kicked out of the tribe, and that means we'll face death, right? That, like, from a very primal perspective, that's what our brains are still hardwired to believe. Even just changing what you eat can trigger that response, because what if your friends and family think you're some kind of freaking mung bean weirdo, and then they don't want to invite you around for dinner anymore because nobody knows what the heck they can feed you, and therefore you're going to lose your pals and inevitably be dead. So really, that's what the biggest fears are, always just simply about survival. And then I think it's really cool to think, well, is this really, how much, if this all goes wrong, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then really feeling into that worst case scenario, which is usually where you are right now. Like, you're already in your worst case scenario. What if it all goes wrong? Well, I won't have a home business, and I won't, It's like, well, you're already in your worst case scenario now. So why don't you just go for it and see what happens? Because you're probably not going to die or hurt anyone.
Yeah. I love how you share that, because I was talking to a client this morning and was saying how just the perception is just perfect, that social media just creates this perception all the time that, I'm the only one feeling like that. And, what I try and tell people, and why I love that you've shared that, is that we all feel that. We've all got that little voice. We've all got that inner critic, and anything that we're doing that's new is going to feel uncomfortable. And you've talked about the constant evolution of your business. And if we're going to constantly evolve, we're going to go from like this, we're going to sit in discomfort, for a while. Things will look different. We'll get the groove of it, but then something else will come along. We'll go back into that place of discomfort, because that's where growth happens. And it's almost like, you talked about it with food, exactly the same thing, that fear of being rejected or cast out from the tribe or whatever. That's not relevant today. Yet what our brain does is trick us. Well, that's just what it's designed to do. So we have to kind of separate ourselves a little bit from that and see that that's just the trick of the brain. It's going to come up. We don't have to fear it, but we can still, even in this this feeling of fear, still move forward. We might want to run a high sometimes, like I do. I want to go sometimes and go back under the doona. I'm sure you do, and just not face the world today. If if someone says something that we don't like, or whatever. But I think just saying that it's part of all of us. Everybody has that. And I certainly know, for me, knowing that takes a lot of that sort of fear away, because it's normal.
Yeah, it's like whenever anybody says it to me, I'm like, oh, congratulations, you're normal. Like we all feel like that. So what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to stay there, or are you actually going to do this thing that makes you feel a little bit terrified and also makes you feel really excited? It's like, can we just like push through? Because there's the two sides to everything. And I think if a lot of, like you touched on social media before, Trace, like everything is it's very much sort of the same as perfection. Although I think there's a little bit more authenticity now, like, or at least the pages I follow, people are pretty real, which I love, keeping it real and being authentic. But we do have that tendency to think that that everyone else is perfect and I'm not going to be good enough, and therefore just hide away under the doona, which isn't where the growth comes. And usually sitting in that comfort zone, it's not very comfortable at all, is it? It's like it's just a stale place where there's no movement, there's no growth, there's no new experiences, there's no new way to contribute. So yeah, and I think that 2020 has been such a brilliant time for people to have that inner reflection and to think, what is really important to me now? Like we're always thinking, one day I'll like to treat this, I'd like to work from home more, or I'd like to, find another way to contribute to the family, because this way is not really working anymore. But, and people have been stood down from jobs. People have had an opportunity to spend more time at home and realize how good it feels to be there. So I think it's a really empowering time, even though in some ways we feel like we're losing a lot of our rights and freedoms and liberties. I think we're also, if you play it right, and be careful about what you choose, we're also in a really strong position to do a lot more things that we really wanted to do originally.
Yeah, I agree. And so, of course, me and my husband had that big time last year with his business, and had to, I guess it was just the perfect time to reflect and work out whether it was time for him to change. And I'd love to ask you from your perspective. So he's the first man, and he's stepped into a business that's all women apart from him. So how did you feel about that? From your perspective, obviously, I'm sitting next to my husband and supporting him in every way I can and watching it from his perspective. But was there any part of you that was a little bit hesitant about a male joining the Primal Alternative?
Oh, there was a lot of me. Every fiber of my being was, didn't want. I wanted it to be a sisterhood, and I'll tell you why. And this is why Jim's really. It was funny actually, because I had this realization literally a few days before you and Jim booked in for a call, and I just thought, wow, that just goes to show that it's always energy first. It's always, you can never grow. We sort of sit back and we think, right, well, I've got this business. I am so ready to make millions of dollars now, but actually you're not. And there's a lot of stuff you've got to do. And I don't just mean in terms of setting up websites and businesses and marketing campaigns and strategies and getting staff and all that kind of thing. It's the stuff we've got to do in between our own two ears with our own selves, to work out what we're capable of, what we can handle. And it's so interesting how, I was saying I've had this big sort of deconstruction over summer. It was so interesting to hire like a third party and dissect everything and just reveal where you weave fear and you weave barriers into your business, like no men. And the reason that I had done that was because I'd worked in corporate, in a patriarchal corporate, where you've got to go to work in really, we've got suits on now, but mine's all nice and flowing. I can actually move my arms You have to wear like nylon tights and really uncomfortable shoes that are high heels. But you've got to walk around up and down the terrace in the CBD all day long, and it's just awful. And you just can't wait to get home and not be in those inauthentic bullshit boardroom meetings where people are just talking this weird language and this business language that just feels really fake. And I'd worked in that environment, and I thought, I can't go back to that. I just thought, well, I'll just be a mum. Like, that's all I'll do, because there's no other option for me out there, because I can't face going back into that patriarchal, male-dominated workspace, right? And that is really hard to be a mother in anyway, because of the hours that they require of you. And then, the social expectations, they want you to spend 60 hours a week in this office and then all hang out and get drunk and have sex with each other on a Friday afternoon. Like, no thanks. Like, doesn't really fit in for me anymore. So when I worked out that we could have this baking business, and then started to, find this like underground network of women who were building amazing empires from home whilst juggling being a mom and Pilates classes and cooking everything from scratch. Like, I found this different way. And I think that, I was saying, wow, this is a brilliant time to be a woman, because you can create your own channels. You can reach people, but still be from home. Like, you don't need to make it to the top and be in a magazine or on TV. You can get in front of people. What an incredibly empowering time for women. So, and baking, I sort of modeled this when I presented my license to the world. I was thinking about, stay-at-home mums, because I was one, that it was working for me. But, we soon found that we had empty nesters, women in their 50s, all sorts of women who didn't even have kids, who worked full time. There's just this, it didn't matter. It didn't matter about that. The key thing was that they were all been on a health journey. So they'd all had their own health problems and healed it through real food. So they got it, and they wanted to help other people. So it's just like I call it like a self-transcendence, because when you're really sick, you need to put all of your energy into getting you better, right? Because otherwise you're no use anyway. But once you've got to that point, and you're feeling better, and you're like, oh my God, I've got this energy and my body doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm sleeping and I'm pooing and my cycle is regular, or I've got my cycle back, or, whatever it is that's happened as a result of this cascade of, ill health. You then become a little bit evangelical. You want to share it with your friends. You start blathering onto it. You create a blog. You become a health coach, And this was like a vehicle to help them help others without them having to go and do a degree or start their own brand and get, tripped up on which fonts and what color they're going to have their logo, and never do it. So this was that. And then I just realized, 4 years into it, that this wasn't about feminine stuff. Like, you don't need to be a woman to be feminine, because we've got both the feminine and the masculine in us, and that there are men out there who also want to work in a community-centric business, that want to be there at home, that really value good health, have experienced it themselves, want to contribute and help others in their community. And it's really just about having the same values. Like, it doesn't mean that those values have got a gender, they're completely separate. And I just had this moment. I was like, oh my goodness, yeah. It's just like, just really value. I want to work with people who have got those real values around community, ethical trading, authenticity. That's not a male or a female word. And I literally had that. I was driving along in the car. I was like, oh, light bulb moment. And then you booked in. And I was like, oh my goodness. And of course, because I'd sent out that ripple into the universe, I basically told the universe, your bloke can come if he's got these same kind of values. And then in comes Jim, who is like the epitome of those values. Is he not? Like, and I was like, oh my goodness.
And he's the most masculine man you would ever meet, again.
Yeah.
So, it just blows all those kind of stereotypes out the window. And I love it how you talk about values instead, because that is exactly, what he was looking for as well.
Yeah. And, there's blokes that are in corporate who probably feel particularly stifled by all the same things that I mentioned that I felt stifled with, that felt inauthentic to my soul to be part of that kind of that vibe anymore. And so when you realize that, then it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't matter. It's about values. It's not about gender. And Jim has been the best bloke, the best human that could ever ever joined. Like, seriously, it's such an honor to have him there. I love like shouting from the rooftops, he's our first bloke Primalista, and he's like so proud to be it too. Like, he doesn't mind being like showcased, and like you're talking about him everywhere, and I'm like talking about him everywhere. And he's like that, yeah, it's cool. Like, he's not like, oh no, don't make a fuss, don't, whereas some blokes would be, right? So go Jim, go Primalista Jim.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm so proud of him too, and I've just been in awe of watching him take this on, and it's just so great to watch. And for me, I'm involved just in a silent way. I support him and help him whenever he needs, and obviously in and around my work. It fits so beautifully. And I think I love how you were saying how, well, what I sort of gathered, I guess putting my words on it, is that people constantly butt up against your own beliefs and thought systems. And if we let them, they're the things that are going to springboard to new ideas for us and to new ways of doing things. And I think, this whole thing that we're doing together, I constantly see ways that I can do things differently. And I just think, half the time we don't even know, we're not even aware of those. I love how you were saying that, those little blockages and barriers that, do generally come from fear around what we do. And, it's Jim that, would say to me often, you're always, says it in a very kind way, but he goes, you're always kind of seeing the negative side of things before you'll see the positive. And, I was kind of, he'd say that to me. This was quite a few years ago. He'd say to me, why do you always see that first? And I was like, I didn't even know. I didn't even realize that I did that. And, just pointing that out, he's really kind about it. And, I sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, it's probably, that's just a habitual response for me, but why do I have to do that? I don't have to do that. And, then I started to realize that I had a whole lot of more choice around that. And even now, like, for us going to a market, I mean, Jim could do that on his ear. He is people. He is about just, he eats fear for breakfast. That's just his mentality, because that's the world he's lived in with martial arts, for, a very long, I won't say how long, but a very, very long time. But, for the first, I didn't sleep, the night before the first market, and I'm nervous and I'm going through things in my head, and, but I just, we just turned up, and I know that if I'm with him and he's sort of doing things and leading the way, it just, I don't know, it just will always work out. And I don't quite know what I'm saying, but it just, I am very, very proud of him, and it's just been great. Like, from my perspective of my work, being able to get into the community, because my health coaching work has been, it's all on Zoom. I did have a period before COVID where I worked out of an office, but predominantly my work is on Zoom. And I love when people come up, how many times, Helen, people come up, Primal Alternative, or I've heard of Helen, I've listened to her podcast, and or they, and they're like, I love this stuff. And, or they, they might have come out because they knew of me, or they, and it's just, it's lovely. I love it. And I come back from those markets, I just feel so full, of the fact that, this is we're touching people. We are, but in a way where hopefully, they walk away with a really good feeling as well after they've experienced us.
It's so true. Like, it's so true. It's a real, what I call it, is a real community immersion. And like you say, everything's so online. I practically live out of this room. Everything's done on my computer, whether it's my workout or it's my meetings. And don't get me wrong, I really love being at home. I love having stillness, solitude, and silence, because I hated that corporate noisy environment, and you can get a lot more stuff done here. But what I loved about producing was that you'd have those quiet days at home in the kitchen listening to your favorite podcast, and then you had your market. It was the highlight of your week. You got really pumped and excited and nervous before you went there, and then you're there and you're hugging everyone, and maybe not in Victoria, but back pre-COVID, hugging everyone, or that thing. Yeah. But like my air kisses, whatever, and you're getting this lovely feedback and stories about people's sons who have got sensory issues, and they look forward to their fruit toast on a Friday afternoon because that's something they really look forward to, and they enjoy eating it. It doesn't cause them any problems. Like stories like that, you come home and you're like, wow, I'm really like contributing and making a difference in a really good way. But that aside, you make all these new pals with all of the other market holders who are all, like foodie people too. And you just have this buzz. You come home and you collapse in a heap, and because it's been so exhausting, but worth it because you're cashed up and you got your grass-fed meat, you got your veggies, you got your sauerkraut, and you're feeling like so full and satisfied. And then obviously you chill out the day after because it's been so intense, but good. And even though I haven't been producing for how many years now? 5 years since I stopped. Put the tools down and focused on growing the brand, because and it makes me so excited to hear that people are coming up to you and saying they've heard of me and they've listened to my podcast, because me getting the brand out there means that people like Jim will make more sales because people know Primal Alternative. They don't have to, they're straight out of the starting blocks. They don't need to build brand awareness and spend 2 years building up a social media presence before they make some decent sales. They'll be straight in and getting orders, which is so cool. And what I love about my job. I don't know where I was going with that one either. brain farts. Like a million things.
Love chatting.
Like that and that.
I know. How funny. Well, I was going to say about the markets, though, it's so good, because we're at farmers markets, and Jim's like, can you stop spending all our income? Like, because I'm like, every time it's quiet, I'm like, get some money, and I'm just going to go and check all the other shops. So the dairy and my meat and berries and stuff like that. But it's lovely, and to me, I would much rather give money to people like that. And it's the stories too, as you say. Like funny, the first time we're at Kingston, the guy put us in the wrong spot, and whether he did it on purpose or not, I don't know, but the person's spot who he took had been there like 30 or 20 years or something, and she rocked up and got the shits, and and we're like, we were just told to go here, and she went and complained, and anyway, we could have got a bit, you're new, right, to something that's established, and if you've put in the wrong, all that, you feel like you're back at school again. But anyway, Jim he doesn't let that bother him, and he's just like, hey, darling, my name's Jim, and chat, and because best friends by the end of the morning. Yeah. But then you hear their stories, and every weekend for 20 years. So her husband goes to one, she goes to another. Wow. Both days they spend all week baking, and they make pies, like using real meat and stuff like that. Just beautiful stuff. And I'm just like, I mean, it's hard work. Anyone that just rocks up and thinks these people don't deserve every cent is just crazy, because they put so much of their heart and soul into these stuff. And that's why I love these markets and connecting with these people. And Primal Alternative made all that possible.
Oh, I know. That's what I was going to say about the connection. So, like, I don't do the market anymore, but I still go to the market every Sunday, and I just hang out, and I'm like soaking up the vibe, because it just becomes part of, it's something I think that's quite missing. You definitely don't get that feeling when you go around Coles or Woolies, like you just kind of get this feeling when you go around there. But when you go to those places, I mean, the people that I made friends with when I was doing my markets, like I'm still besties with them. Like we have dinner every 6 weeks, and everybody's got some kind of paleo or grain-free or low carb or vegan option, like making dinner is not a problem. Okay, that one's grain-free and that one's dairy-free, and the people like that get it. So yeah, it's been so awesome for making those new friendships and having those new connections, and still having that desire to go to those places. And you know what, Trace, there was weeks there I'd take about $500 in cash when I did my markets, and there'd be weeks when I'd come home with nothing in my pocket because I'd put $100 under the bursar's door at the Steiner School, which is where my daughter's at. So paid for school fees, filled up the car with petrol, got myself a couple of bottles of wine, got my grass-fed meat, filled up with veggies. I'd be like unloading forever when I got back. But I just thought, that's like ye olde bartering, essentially, isn't it? It's like, well,
yeah,
here's this for that. I'll buy some sauerkraut from you. You're getting some pizza bases from me. And it feels good. It's like, it's something that you know that you're familiar with, because it must be in our genes to be, so community centric like that, and to be with our tribe. And that's, the old bartering system from way back when. And it feels so good, compared to, like I say, just, I even feel depressed thinking about it. I don't even go to we do the big like supermarket shop for cat food and coconut milk and stuff like that, right? But I send my husband there because it literally makes me feel like walking around there. Whereas I go and do the markets, and that's my social hangout. I don't need to like ring so and so. Do you want to catch up? Do you want to catch up? Do you want to catch up? They're all there. We're just there, hanging out. It's so much fun. Love it. Brilliant.
Love it.
People and food.
So the best. So you said you had your big think over and big unpacking over the New Year's break and got someone in. Can you share any sort of new directions or new exciting things that are going to happen for Primal Alternative this year? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah, and I love hearing this stuff from other business owners. Like, what are you doing in your business? How are you growing your business? I want to grow a Primal Alternative, and I've been asking the question. I really believe that if you've got a question you don't know the answer to, you just ask. You just keep asking. Just ask the universe. Ask your busy business besties that you have a chat to. How can I grow my business? How can I grow my business? How can I grow my business? How can I grow the brand? And I've just been asking. And so far to date, Primal Alternative has grown through influencer collaborations. So we worked with Chef Pete Evans, who loved the man, but he's gone a bit political, and he's moved away from food, and that's fine. Journeys evolve. But he was really awesome in getting our brand out there. But it really did kind of rely on when he posted stuff on Instagram. It would be like peaks in sales and peaks in people booking a call with me to be a producer. And it's kind of hard to forecast and work out how much you're going to grow based on how much someone's going to share about you. And it's been amazing in terms of developing the brand as a bit of a well-known name in the paleo world. And also with Jo Whitten from Quirky Cooking, she's been instrumental right from the beginning. In the first 6 months, she was like, I love what you're doing. Let me tell my millions of adoring fans all about you. So, and Jo's like one of my business besties now. We talk every day, running through things together, which is like, it's, oh my God, Jo Whitten, my friend. It's awesome. It's so cool. So, but what I worked out that I needed, and, my business has grown in a very sort of gentle, feminine way, energetically, kind of thing. And I'm like, you know what? No, we've got everything. It's just like you said, you've seen how much work's gone into it. It's a slick system. It's really, it's performing. We know it works. It's time to just get on with it and really get it out there. So I was just Googling, you do that Googling when you should be going to bed. You think, I'll go to bed at 9:30. And then you think, well, past 9:30, I'll go to bed at 10. And then it's got to be a round number, right? You're like, 10:30 now. Scroll. And we're all guilty of it. Come on, let's be honest. And anyway, I just was asking Google, how can I scale my business? How can I grow my business? And this digital marketing agency called King Kong, like you couldn't get any more like masculine. King Kong. rah. And so I was like, okay. And so I just thought, well, okay. Whereas, a year ago I would have gone, oh my God, no, that sounds so manly and I'm not going there. But I was like, you know what? No, this is what I need. I need a bit of clout. I need a bit of punch and power. So I was like, okay. So I went through their whole onboarding system and I just adored it. It was so, so good. And then I had this strategy meeting with this company and 9 people came onto the call.
Oh,
and
God.
there was, yeah. And they were all women. And which is like, just goes to show. And they were like, I'm your strategy person. I'm your copy person. I'm you going to build your landing page. I'm going to develop your ebook. I'm going to do your nurture series and I'll be doing your Facebook adverts and I'll be monitoring how successful your Facebook. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't deserve all this work. These people are amazing. And I said to Jo, I said, I felt like the CEO of a big company. And she's like, well, you are? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I am. And I think, gone are the days where you just like, and especially with Facebook and what you can say and what you can't say. And, I've got my account closed down so many times and adverts blocked because,
Really?
we're working with, because we're working with hemp, which is, they think that we're selling drugs on Facebook, and then because our bread's got the cheeky fat and seedy name, they think we're selling alcohol to fat people, or that we're calling people fat. So it's tricky, right? And I just think, I don't want to spend all of my time trying to get an advert on there that works. So I'm going to leave it to the experts. And they literally went through my whole, Primalista onboarding series, through all of my sales material, everything I do, and just dissected it and said, why are you putting this in there? Why are you saying that? You're not making it. Where's your guarantee? Why are you not telling them about your guarantee? And you need to like eliminate risk for people so that they know, like I know people will get sales. So why don't we just guarantee that you'll get a sale? Because that makes it a lot easier to sell to your husband, doesn't it? So yeah, just things like that have been phenomenal. And it's been a process. So I haven't had any ads running since November. And I normally run ads all the time. And, like a sort of a byproduct of that is brand awareness. So that drives sales for Primalistas as well. But yeah, these ads aren't going to switch on until March. So I'm kind of sat here a bit like this because I'm just ready to, let's go. I've got to just surrender and let go and wait for when I'm imagining that it's going to pop. It's very exciting.
Very exciting. And how bizarre, like even just setting up Jim's shop, like all the products that had hemp got rejected, fat and seedy, keto cookies got rejected. And I just went onto them and, you could do a review. And I just wrote their food, and in the end, because every time I changed something, I had to redo it. Like they took them all off again and I had to put them all, to go through it again. In the end, I didn't even write anything. I just hit review. And then I did try and do one little ad for them because I wanted to try and get some of our local people to come to the market. And got rejected. And I was like, oh well. It's just
hard. It is. It's so hard.
But that's because they're not people. They just have all these. It's so big that everything is. Yes. And then, of course, when you try and get beyond that, it's impossible. But I had a discussion with another health coach, did a podcast with him, and he's not on Facebook. He's like, he decided about a year ago, 18 months ago, to get off it completely. And he goes, look, I was really a bit anxious and nervous about it because I was like, what about my business, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, but, my business has gone – it's gone better, different, selling health coaching to selling a product, but he said, on Facebook, all people want is free health coaching, and I find now that they're going to pay me for it. And that's a problem, not so much with you guys, with products and stuff like that, because obviously they're getting something
Oh, they want
concrete.
the recipes. They usually want the recipes. Where's the recipe for this one? I'm like, no, you have to buy it. It's a product. Yeah. Wait, that's funny. Or they'll say, I've had people say to me, I know that, your recipes are a trade secret, but I'm actually moving to, far off land. Can you just give the recipes to me?
Really?
No.
Cheeky.
Why would I do that?
Cheeky. Well, one last story for you, just because you'll really like this. So Jim is applied for a midweek market in Mornington down here. They have because he'd love to do one weekend, one midweek. And it's the Main Street one in Mornington. And they said he sent off the application, and they set back saying, because it's the only criteria is that everything has to be homemade. So it's either homemade, home baked, homegrown, or whatever. And they said, because we sent the Primal Alternative website, and so these are all the details. And they're like, is everything home baked? Because this looks like, a very professional and bit too slick. So we'll have to say no, sorry. And Jim's like, well, actually, it is all home baked. It looks very professional, but what we are a bunch of all women, apart from me, I'm the first man, to set up a home-based baking business to bake for our community. They're all homemade, everything, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, that's a different story. Then, of course, we'd love to have you. But I just thought, that's the perception is that it
is. And it's almost like too slick. And when when we had Pete on the labels, people would assume that it was Pete's recipe and we bought it from Pete's factory, and we were just like on-selling it. I'm like, no, it's my recipe. He just helped me like a big brother would to just stand on his shoulders and share me. That's all it was. Like, he got nothing from it. I don't even know why he did it. I think he just loved it, just loved the idea. And I think he likes having his face on stuff as well, which is fair enough. Like, I don't mind putting his face on. It was great while it lasted. It was amazing. The website would crash when you put something on Instagram because everyone was wanting to buy it was like, I remember sitting in a cafe and like everyone's messaging me, your website's crashed, the website's down. And I remember just sitting back with a cup of coffee and just savoring it and going, this is a really good problem to have. Yes. This is brilliant. It's so good. But there is a problem in some ways because it's so slick, and then because we've got these amazing like photos taken by Jordan Pye, who is just this phenomenal woman. She's wonderful. She's a GAPS practitioner and nutritionist, and she also takes amazing photos. So I send her some mixes, and she makes them up and photographs them. So when people start their new social media channels, they've got these like super slick images. People are like, wow, what have you, where did you get these from? Because I see a lot of people coming into the food industry and they take these really daggy, really bad pictures of food, and they'll use really bad words to describe them. Like, my most hated word for describing anything to do with food is moist. And that's a word, that moist. A nice moist loaf. Like, it's so disgusting. And they got these really bad photos, really bad lighting, and but again, that's a good problem to have. And once you share the story and you say, well, actually, we're a network of home bakers, all making this from scratch, from home, by hand, then they're like, wow. And I think the reason people don't get it sometimes is because I actually don't think there's another business like this out there. Like, I've tried to search, and people say, who's your competition? I'm like, I don't think there is one. Like, yes, for sure, there's other grain-free bread companies. Absolutely. I love most of them and buy some of their products myself just to kind of mix it up. And, I think these are people on the same mission as me. Like, they're family, we're not in competition. We're all contributing to the same conversation, like same as, you and I with health coaching and your other health coach buddies. It's not competition. It's we're all contributing to the same conversation, which is a beautiful way to look at it. If you feel like, oh, who's my competition? Who's out there? But yeah, a very, very unique model. I've tried searching baking licenses, and there isn't any. So maybe I should start saying the world's leading baking license.
Something, why not? But it is really unique, and make it. And because Jim gets back all the time. All the other home baked people that we've kind of already got them at them, and he has to say, well, actually, you don't have you might have grain and gluten-free, but you certainly don't have people that have low-carb options and ketogenic options. And because people kind of know those names now, certainly keto is kind of out there. Like, they're a little bit interested.
Especially in Victoria.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, the V word, which I don't like using so much, but, there's a market there.
I say egg-free, dairy-free, brackets vegan. Because there's people out there who are egg-free, dairy-free, but they're not vegan.
That's right. There's no Primal Alternative steak, although if you're ever wanting to do that.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Just vegans don't buy the jellies. I always said, no, they're definitely not vegan because they're full of gelatin.
No, it's fantastic. It was so good to talk to you, darling. I love it. I'm so proud of what you've done, and that I have a little bit of insight through Jim of just what he's joined, and that he's so proud. He calls it his sisterhood. He's always on the group and telling little things to me about the girls, and they just seem amazing. And I kind of wish I was in there.
Well, you kind of are, like I always, sometimes when primalistas join, they try and add their husband to the Facebook group. I'm like, no, like this is exclusively for primalistas. But you're kind of because Jim found, Jim and I got together through you. Like you were so I sort of feel like you're an honorary primalist anyway. But no, I love it. It still is a sisterhood. Everyone says hi, sisters and Jim. Or hi, sisters and bro.
It's great. I love it.
Just great.
Yeah,
I love it great. Too. It's so cool.
Well, thank you, darling, for talking to me today. Always a pleasure, and good luck. I can't wait to watch it just explode like King Kong over the next, however many years. It's wonderful, and you're just so brave. And I love just, as I said, the way that you share the journey, and show women and men and people that, if the desire's there, the fears will be there too, and that's okay. You can still take that leap out and you'll be okay. You'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. Great way to end, Trace. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thank you, darling.